U.S. President Donald Trump says the U.S. is going to run Venezuela until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. It comes after U.S. forces captured the Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro, following strikes on the country. Maduro and his wife have been brought to the U.S., where he has been indicted on drug charges in New York. The strikes inside Venezuela come after a U.S. pressure campaign against the Maduro government, which the Trump administration accuses of flooding the U.S. with drugs and gang members. Trump blames Nicolás Maduro for the arrival of hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants in the U.S. They are among close to 8 million Venezuelans estimated to have fled the country's economic crisis and repression since 2013. Without providing evidence, Trump has accused Maduro of emptying his prisons and insane asylums and forcing its inmates to migrate to the U.S. Trump has also focused on fighting the influx of drugs, especially fentanyl and cocaine, into the U.S. He has designated two Venezuelan criminal groups, Tren de Aragua and Cartel de los Soles, as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, and has alleged that the latter is led by Maduro himself. Analysts have pointed out that Cartel de los Soles is not a hierarchical group, but a term used to describe corrupt officials who have allowed cocaine to transit through Venezuela. Trump had also doubled the reward for information leading to Maduro's capture and has announced that he would designate the Maduro government as an FTO. Maduro has vehemently denied being a cartel leader and has accused the U.S. of using its war on drugs as an excuse to try to depose him and get its hands on Venezuela's vast oil reserves. There has been a buildup of pressure on the Maduro government since Trump began his second term in office last January. First, the Trump administration doubled the reward it offered for information leading to the capture of Maduro. In September, U.S. forces began targeting vessels it accused of carrying drugs from South America to the U.S. There have been more than 30 strikes on such vessels in the Caribbean and the Pacific since then, killing more than 110 people. The Trump administration argues that it is involved in a non-international armed conflict with the alleged drug traffickers, whom it accuses of conducting irregular warfare against the U.S. Many legal experts say the strikes are not against lawful military targets. The first attack, on the 2nd of September, has drawn particular scrutiny as there was not one but two strikes, with survivors of the first hit killed in the second. A former chief prosecutor at the International Criminal Court told the BBC that the U.S. military campaign more generally fell into the category of a planned, systematic attack against civilians during peacetime. In response, the White House said it had acted in line with the laws of armed conflict to protect the U.S. from cartels trying to bring poison to our shores, destroying American lives. Back in October, Trump said he had authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela. He also threatened strikes on land against what he described as narco-terrorists. He said that the first of such strikes had been carried out on the 24th of December, though he gave little detail, just stating that it had targeted a dock area where boats alleged to carry drugs were being loaded. Prior to Maduro's capture, Trump repeatedly said that Maduro is no friend of the U.S. and that it would be smart for him to go. He also increased the financial pressure on Maduro by declaring a total naval blockade on all sanctioned oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela. Oil is the main source of foreign revenue for the Maduro government. The U.S. has also deployed a huge military force in the Caribbean, whose stated aim is to stop the flow of fentanyl and cocaine to the U.S. As well as targeting vessels they accuse of smuggling drugs, the force has also played a key role in the U.S. naval blockade. Counter-narcotic experts say that Venezuela is a relatively minor player in global drug trafficking, acting as a transit country through which drugs produced elsewhere are smuggled. Its neighbor, Colombia, is the world's largest producer of cocaine, but most of it is thought to enter the U.S. by other routes, not via Venezuela. According to a U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration DEA report from 2020, almost 3/4 of the cocaine reaching the U.S. is estimated to be trafficked via the Pacific, with just a small percentage coming via fast boats in the Caribbean. While most of the early strikes the U.S. has carried out were in the Caribbean, more recent ones have focused on the Pacific. In September, Trump told U.S. military leaders that the boats targeted are stacked up with bags of white powder that's mostly fentanyl and other drugs too. Fentanyl is a synthetic drug which is 50 times more potent than heroin and has become the main drug responsible for opioid overdose deaths in the U.S. On the 15th of December, Trump signed an executive order designating fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, arguing that it was closer to a chemical weapon than a narcotic. However, fentanyl is produced mainly in Mexico and reaches the U.S. almost exclusively via land through its southern border. Venezuela is not mentioned as a country of origin for fentanyl smuggled into the U.S. in the DEA's 2025 National Drug Threat Assessment. Nicolás Maduro rose to prominence under the leadership of left-wing President Hugo Chavez and his United Socialist Party of Venezuela, PSUV. Maduro, a former bus driver and union leader, succeeded Chavez and has been president since 2013. During the 26 years that Chavez and Maduro have been in power, their party has gained control of key institutions, including the National Assembly, much of the judiciary, and the Electoral Council. In 2024, Maduro was declared winner of the presidential election, even though voting tallies collected by the opposition suggested that its candidate, Edmundo González, had won by a landslide. González had replaced the main opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, on the ballot after she was barred from running for office. She was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in October for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. Machado defied a travel ban and made her way to Oslo in December to collect the award after months in hiding. She said that she planned to return to Venezuela, a move which would put her at risk of arrest by the Venezuelan authorities, who have declared her a fugitive. For months, U.S. spies had been monitoring Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro's every move. A small team, including one source within the Venezuelan government, had been observing where the 63-year-old slept, what he ate, what he wore, and even, according to top military officials, his pets. Then, in early December, a planned mission dubbed Operation Absolute Resolve was finalized. It was the result of months of meticulous planning and rehearsals, which even included elite U.S. troops creating an exact full-size replica of Maduro's Caracas safe house to practice their entry routes. The plan, which amounted to an extraordinary U.S. military intervention in Latin America not seen since the Cold War, was closely guarded. Congress was not informed or consulted ahead of time. With the precise details set, top military officials simply had to wait for the optimal conditions to launch. They wanted to maximize the element of surprise, officials said on Saturday. There was a false start 4 days earlier when U.S. President Donald Trump gave approval, but they opted to wait for better weather and less cloud cover. Over the weeks through Christmas and New Year, the men and women of the United States military sat ready, patiently waiting for the right triggers to be met and the president to order us into action. General Dan Kane, the nation's highest-ranking military officer, told a news conference on Saturday morning, "The order from the president to begin the mission finally came at 22:46 Eastern Standard Time on Friday, 3:46 Greenwich Mean Time on Saturday. We were going to do this 4 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago, and then all of a sudden it opened up and we said go," Trump himself told Fox and Friends on Saturday, hours after the overnight raid. "He said to us, and we appreciate it. Good luck and Godspeed," General Kane said. Trump's order came shortly before midnight in Caracas, giving the military most of the night to operate in darkness. What followed was a 2-hour and 20-minute mission by air, land, and sea that stunned many in Washington and around the world. In terms of scale and precision, it was virtually unprecedented, and it drew immediate condemnation from several regional powers, with Brazil's President Lula da Silva saying the violent capture of Venezuela's leader set yet another extremely dangerous precedent for the entire international community. Trump did not follow the mission from the White House Situation Room. Instead, he was surrounded by his advisors at his Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach, Florida, where he watched a live stream of the operation, flanked by CIA Director John Ratcliffe and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. "It was an incredible thing to see," Trump said on Saturday. "If you would have seen what happened, I watched it literally like I was watching a television show. And if you would have seen the speed, the violence, it was an amazing thing, an amazing job that these people did." In recent months, thousands of U.S. troops have deployed to the region, joining an aircraft carrier and dozens of warships in the largest military buildup in decades, as Trump has accused Maduro of drug trafficking and narco-terrorism, and blown up dozens of small boats accused of ferrying drugs through the region. But the first signs of Operation Absolute Resolve were in the skies. More than 150 aircraft, including bombers, fighter jets, and reconnaissance planes, were ultimately deployed through the course of the night, according to U.S. officials. It was very complex, extremely complex. The whole maneuver, the landings, the number of aircraft, Trump told Fox News. We had a fighter jet for every possible situation. Loud explosions were heard in Caracas at about 2 a.m. local time, 6 a.m. GMT, and plumes of smoke were seen rising over the city. BBC Verify has examined a number of videos showing explosions, fire, and smoke in locations around Caracas to identify exactly which sites were targeted. So far, it has confirmed 5 locations, including Generalissimo Francisco de Miranda Air Base, an airfield known as La Carlota, and Port La Guaira, Caracas's main conduit to the Caribbean Sea. Some of the U.S. strikes targeted air defense systems and other military targets, officials said. Trump also suggested the U.S. cut the power in Caracas before the mission began, though he did not specify how. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have, he said. It was dark, and it was deadly. They knew we were coming. As strikes rang out around Caracas, U.S. forces made their way into the city. They included members of the elite Delta Force, the U.S. military's top special mission unit, sources told the BBC's U.S. news partner CBS. They were heavily armed and carried a blowtorch in case they had to cut through the metal doors of Maduro's safe house. The troops arrived at Maduro's location shortly after the strikes began at 2:01 local time, according to Jen Kane. Trump described the safe house as a military fortress in the heart of Caracas, saying, "They were in a ready position waiting for us. They knew we were coming." The troops took fire when they arrived, and one of the U.S. helicopters was hit but was still able to fly. The apprehension force descended into Maduro's compound and moved with speed, precision, and discipline, General Kane said. They just broke in, and they broke into places that were not really able to be broken into, steel doors that were put there for just this reason, Trump remarked. It was only as the operation, which also saw Maduro's wife, Cilia Flores, seized, was unfolding, that Rubio began notifying lawmakers about the action, a decision which has since prompted anger from some in the U.S. Congress. Let me be clear, Nicolás Maduro is an illegitimate dictator, but launching military action without congressional authorization and without a credible plan for what comes next is reckless, said top Democrat Chuck Schumer, the party's leader in the Senate. Briefing Congress ahead of time would have endangered the mission, Rubio told reporters during the news conference on Saturday. Congress has a tendency to leak, Trump added. This would not be good. In Maduro's compound, as elite U.S. troops flooded in, Trump said the Venezuelan president, who has reportedly increased his reliance on Cuban bodyguards in recent months, attempted to flee to a safe room. He was trying to get to a safe place, which wasn't safe, because we would have had the door blown up in about 47 seconds, Trump said. He made it to the door. He was unable to close it. He got bum-rushed so fast that he didn't get into that room. When asked if the U.S. could have killed Maduro, an authoritarian leader who took over the presidency in 2013, if he had resisted arrest, Trump said, "It could have happened." On the U.S. side, a couple of guys were hit off, he said, but no U.S. service members were killed. In a statement on Sunday, Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino said a large part of Maduro's security team and soldiers and innocent civilians were killed in the U.S. operation. The U.S. had previously offered a $50 million reward for information leading to Maduro's arrest. But by 4:20 local time on Saturday, helicopters were leaving Venezuelan territory with Maduro and his wife on board, in custody of the U.S. Department of Justice and en route ultimately to New York, where they are expected to face criminal charges. Almost exactly an hour later, Donald Trump announced the news of his capture to the world. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice, Donald Trump said.